Coming up on today's Next Fan Up podcast, we have the real reason why week 2 in the NFL was Slaughter Sunday.
I've just seen the Next Fan Up podcast, the injury report, and I see Eagles James has got a chip on his shoulder.
That's right. It's the curse of Nealon James. We've got all of that in your Not a Week 2 recap. Here we go.
That's how we start. Yeah, baby.
32 super fans.
Where do the reports come from? Did you get an initial?
One PodVader.
That's football.
Every angle of the NFL covered.
All that kind of stuff, I get it.
This,
no question about it,
is Next Fan Up.
We're going to unleash hell here in December.
Hello and welcome to It's Not a Week 2 NFL recap show from your friends here at Next Fan Up. I am PodVader, and this week I am joined by the man who cursed week 2 in the NFL with the chip on his shoulder. It's Eagles fan James. James, how do you feel about that?
First of all, I curse no one. Secondly, I just read the injury reports. I mean, I didn't see this coming. I feel bad for all of these players. I mean, if nothing else, I like to see the games in with the players healthy. Because, I mean, it sucks to play a season and then the fan of the opposing team that you swept one year always kicks back with, yeah, but our best player wasn't out there. See what happens next season.
Bill Barnwell wrote an article on Monday ranking the impact of all the injuries. Now, I'm not here to argue his rankings, but I'm here more to use it as the way to sort of summarize everything that occurred on Slaughter Sunday. Nick Bosa, defensive end, 49ers, torn ACL. Torn ACL for New York Giants running back Saquon Barkley. Next is a high ankle sprain for Carolina Panthers Christian McCaffrey. Okay, how about a sprained AC joint for quarterback Drew Lock of the Denver Broncos? Cortland Sutton, torn ACL for the Denver Broncos. That's always good. High ankle sprain, quarterback Jimmy Garoppolo, San Francisco 49ers. By the way, more on the Niners in just a moment. Hamstring injury, Green Bay Packers wide receiver Devontae Adams. Knee injury, cornerback Tavon Young, Baltimore Ravens. That's only 8. 9, Achilles tendon for safety Malik Hooker, Indianapolis Colts. That's his third straight season missing due to injury. Brandon Scherf, guard, Washington football team with a knee. Byron Jones, cornerback, Miami Dolphins with that inner thigh injury. What is that called again, James?
Yeah, exactly that inner thigh injury.
It's called a groin. The sprained MCL for Raheem Mostert, running back, San Francisco 49ers. Chest injury, Tyrod Taylor, quarterback, Los Angeles Chargers. This apparently was, he had a reaction to an injection for pain in his ribs.
That's not good.
I don't, I'm not a medical professional, but I guess we're going to have to figure out what pain medication causes you to have chest palpitations or chest pain, like you're having a heart attack, because you're trying to kill the pain from a rib injury.
That's very concerning.
Shoulder injury for linebacker Anthony Barr, Minnesota Vikings. A knee for Brandon Linder, center, Jacksonville Jaguars. A knee for guard Isaac Seumalo for the Philadelphia Eagles. A knee for wide receiver Paris Campbell, Indianapolis Colts. A sprained MCL for offensive tackle for the Falcons, Caleb McGarry. Defensive end Bruce Irvin, Seattle Seahawks, left with a knee injury. Guard for the Los Angeles Rams, Joe Noteboom, with a calf. A hamstring for Will Fuller, wide receiver, Houston Texans. Now, color me surprised. Will Fuller's hurt. Other injury. Those were the 21 most impactful as listed by Bill Barnwell. He does list the honorable mentions. Corey Linsley of the Packers, Brashad Perriman, Chris Hogan, Connor McGovern for the Jets. We've got Chidobe Awuzie with a hamstring. Titans were already thin at cornerback with Adoree Jackson on IR, and Malcolm Butler missed practice during the week. And then they lost Jonathan Joseph to a leg. So many more injuries that came out after Slaughter Sunday was finished. But the best here that was brought up here by Field Yates on Twitter, and thanks to Crazy Jared for sharing this with all of the super fans. 49ers have 5 wide receivers and Richard Sherman on IR. Starting center on PUP, Jimmy G and their 2 top running backs are hurt. Tevin Coleman also apparently hurt his leg. George Kittle has a sprained knee. Nick Bosa and Solomon Thomas have likely ACL tears. Dee Ford is hurt. The MRI machine broke, and their plane got hit on the runway. Other than that, 2020 has just been fine for the 49ers.
Oh, my gosh.
By the way, if that wasn't enough, James, Kyle Shanahan, the head coach of the 49ers, mentioned an injury that didn't go that went unreported. Let's hear from Kyle Shanahan at during his press conference.
Some key players with some bad injuries, which makes it always a little bit harder. And I think we played our asses off.
Oh, my God. The 49ers have lost their buttocks.
That's pretty bad there, Jay. That's horrible. The defense, I think, is going to hurt more than the offense as far as these injuries, because you're talking about their 2 best defensive linemen in Solomon and Bosa. And outside of football, I have nothing nice to say about Bosa because of his prior tweet history before the draft. That's an impact that's going to be felt throughout the entire season. You're talking about run stopping and pass rushing to, I mean, basically the 2 elements of the defensive line that made that whole unit so devastating last year. And half of them are gone. And not just half, the most impactful half of the defensive line. Not to mention, who did they trade over to the Colts in the offseason?
Yeah, that guy.
Yeah. So I'm not saying depth is an issue. I'm just saying the remaining 2 starters have to kick it up. I mentioned this in last week's rundown of the injuries before the game started on week 2. A lot of lower leg injuries, cramping that we were going to see, especially in a lot of these warm weather cities where games are being played, where the weather's still warm, hasn't turned yet in some spots. And the number of just knee, ankle, and ACL sprains or just tears is just mind-boggling for just 1 week. And we still have 15 more of these to go.
Well, I would assume that their conditioning is going to get better. What was surprising is we expected Slaughter Sunday to happen on week 1, not on week 2. DeForest Buckner, by the way, as we all knew, was the great tackle that got traded to the Colts. I mean, we all knew that. We were just making sure everybody else out there knew who we were talking about. Listen, the injuries are something that happen in the NFL. I think the lack of a preseason obviously does not help when it comes to trying to mitigate injuries to your star players. I think it's pretty clear now what the importance of the preseason is, and that is to get your players in football condition and ready to play a game in which you're colliding with other men at full speed. I think it's plain and simple that. And then the other thing is MetLife needs to figure out how to put in turf better or get like some youth players to play on it before an NFL game so that people aren't ripping their knees.
Yeah, absolutely. Because the Niners are staying on the East Coast because they play the Jets. The Giants this week.
Now, what's weird to me about that is that they're apparently staying at a spa in West Virginia. Why wouldn't you stay at a spa somewhere in New York State? Like, why would you get yourself on a plane to, like, that's what was weird to me. It's like, oh, we're going to get on a plane and we're going to leave the state but stay on the East Coast. Why wouldn't you get on, like, a bus and go to someplace close by instead?
Couple of things there to point out, Jay. Let's also remember that, one, the stadium MetLife is in Jersey, not New York. Two, the state of New York is a hotbed for the coronavirus, which is still going on.
Is it really?
It really is. The state of New York is probably the hottest spot up north still. And three, I guess Pennsylvania would be closer than West Virginia geographically, but West Virginia, I guess they figured just, probably not as hard hit as some of the other states with major metropolitan areas.
Well, you definitely don't want to stay in Jersey. I mean, there's there's probably not a nice place in Jersey to stay at. Am I throwing too much shade?
That one.
All right. Well, you want to know what else you're not going to touch? Whatever's going on in the Atlanta Falcons locker room. Here's Julio Jones.
You know, at the end of the day, we don't really need any motivation in our locker room. We know what we got to do. We have grown men in our locker room. We don't have any little boys, anything like that.
Well, I should hope you don't have any little boys or anything like that. That would just be really bad. I mean, come on.
Of course you cut that part. Look, this was a game that if I told you I didn't care about this game for multiple reasons, you couldn't call me a liar for it. It was against the Cowboys. It's a team which fan base down here in Atlanta, and MJ would tell you this, is pretty much fickle in general, very bandwagony. The fact that they botched something as simple as recovering an onside kick shows that those players on the hands team didn't know the rule, despite what Dan Quinn and Arthur Blank have to say about that. Only the kicking team has to wait for the ball to go 10 yards, fellas. You're receiving, you can jump on that thing after one, and no one did. They just watched it spin.
So
forever.
there is that aspect. I get that, but I also understand the reason why they kicked. They call it the watermelon. In that manner is because if you were to, let's say you were to go down to get the spinning ball and you touched it, but you didn't recover the ball. As soon as you touch the ball, the opposing team can now come and get the ball. So you have to make sure that if you got to make sure you dive on top of that sucker. But if it's spinning in that manner, it might squirt out. You may not get it back. So, but no, they trust me. There's no excuse. They had to jump on the ball.
And my clapback for your rationale, as lofty as it is that these guys have been playing football since they were kids, most of them, and that's one of the things you learn on your low-level football. I mean, granted, they probably don't cover it in college, but if you played high school, Pee Wee, Pop Warner, whatever, they teach you to, once that ball comes and you're in the hands team, you're supposed to dive on that ball and shield it with your body. Like, they teach you how to dive on the ball to recover it. As if it's a fumble.
I can tell you right now that my son's high school coaches do not teach those kids that.
Oh, wow.
But then again, my son's high school coaches are terrible. All right. Enough shade thrown at the local high school.
Football, they taught us how to do that.
Let's go back to the pro football, because you mentioned something about being bandwagoners, and Julio Jones says, we don't want your stinking bandwagon.
Yeah, everybody always against us anyways. We don't care. We all we need. We just got to keep battling and keep working. And once we get going, we ain't looking for nobody to jump on the bandwagon or holler at us or anything like that. We good.
All right. So when they do reopen Mercedes-Benz Stadium, nobody go. Nobody needs to go. You can keep those stands empty. The Falcons don't need you. That's what Julio just said.
This is a top-ranked offense right now in the league. They are 5th in points, 2nd in passing. And they're 0-2. And
listen,
it's baffling. They're averaging 32 points a game, Jay. How are you 0-2 when you average 32 points a game on offense?
It's same story, different year. It's not Matt Ryan's fault. The Falcons offense has been great for years. It's always been about the defense. The fact that they haven't addressed the defensive side of the ball with a defensive-minded head coach is their biggest problem.
Wasn't Dan Quinn the defensive coordinator for the Seattle Seahawks?
Yes, 100%. To me, that has been the biggest head scratcher. That the problem has been on the defensive side of the ball. You haven't made the moves that you need to make to address that side of the ball. And the playmakers that you've brought in to make those adjustments always get injured. And I'm surprised that we don't have a laundry list of Atlanta Falcons that are hurt.
Look, when you keep dumping money into the offense, paying Matt Ryan, paying Julio Jones, shoring up that offensive line, bringing in a Todd Gurley, there's not much cash to go around to pay your defensive stars for what little that you do have. So, and prior to this season, that injury that defense was bitten by the injury bug for about 2 or 3 years prior to this year. And, to their credit, thankfully, no one has been hurt as of this point. But you talk about their secondary, which was riddled with injuries, each of the last 2 seasons. The linebacking core pretty much was devastated. Whatever impact they had on the defensive line, those players are gone and playing in other places. So you're talking about just the general manager, the scouting department, and just play on the field, everything all around, not just the coaching, having a negative impact so far this season on this defense.
James, back in the day, I used to be known as One Name Jay. I worked at ESPN Radio. I was on the Mike and Mike in the morning show. They are in the Hall of Fame. Congratulations to them for that. I'm going to claim I'm in the Hall of Fame with them because I worked on the show that put them in the Hall of Fame. In any case, there was a story back in the day about Mike Vanderjagt, the Colts kicker, and he had missed a big field goal. And he mentioned how when he gets angry, he bangs his helmet. And Mark Schlereth was the guest that particular day, and he had the most epic rant about Mike Vanderjagt. Ooh, you get angry, you bang your helmet. I bang my helmet every day, you kicker. It was so phenomenal. Yeah, I guess you had to be there, but maybe it's somewhere online. It was quite possibly the most epic rant ever on kickers. Harrison Butker of the Kansas City Chiefs apparently took that lesson to heart. He must have been listening that day and went, you know what, Mark Schlereth? You wouldn't like me when I'm angry.
I think I just got a little bit more angry every kick. So the first one, I thought they called timeout, and then I realized it was a false start. But going into the second one, they called timeout again. So in my head, that's 2 timeouts. And then I think I even looked at the Chargers sideline because I was like, come on, man, I'm trying to finish this game and get back to Kansas City. So that third one I felt like was my best kick. And, I mean, to have 2 practice kicks before that is only going to help you. And
So Harrison Butker said, thanks for calling timeout. You gave me a practice kick. That's fantastic. Icing the kicker doesn't work. When are coaches going to learn you don't ice the kicker? It actually is harder for them to rush them onto the field and try and kick a field goal without having any time to sort of set their thoughts or whatever. You rush them because that's usually what ends up happening, right? You're either trying to rush to get it in within 40 seconds, or the head coach of your team is playing mind games. It's like, okay, we're going to rush the kicker out there at the last second and we'll force them to call timeout. Stop icing the kicker. It doesn't work.
And sometimes it does. I feel it works on the inexperienced, the kickers who don't perform well in general, with the low field goal percentages. And by low, I mean somewhere around 70%. Those guys, it works on. Probably don't do it on Harrison
Butker because it makes him into the Incredible Hulk.
Again,
you wouldn't like me when I'm angry.
Butker is one of the better kickers in the league, so no, it's not going to work on him. But some lesser kickers, possibly yes. But I mean, coaches still have that mindset. Oh, it's a kicker, not an important part of the game until the game relies on their leg.
He actually had a much better, succinct quote during a post-game interview, which unfortunately we can't use on a podcast because that's the property of a certain broadcaster. But this is a press conference. This is public domain. But he said during that post-game conference, is like, I just wanted to thank the Chargers for letting me practice the kicks before I actually had to do the real kick. That was nice of them.
Absolutely. and that was a wonderful game too. We mentioned Tyrod Taylor earlier. Justin Herbert, I'm pretty sure our Chargers superfan is going to have a lot to say this week going into our Thursday show.
Coming up, we have a fun fact. We have a head coach that's exhausted, and a quarterback had a special guest in the stadium. But first, got to go to that fun fact. I love it when players bring us fun facts, James. It's so nice of them. And Baltimore Ravens running back Mark Ingram had this to share.
Fun fact, I was a first-degree black belt, growing up. So I don't have all my skills that I had back then, but I could still do, a reverse kick. I didn't connect it, but it was still sweet.
Big trust. Woo, woo. He didn't add the big trust. That was me, in case you didn't know.
Oh, my gosh. Yeah, that well-deserved roundhouse that he tried to display there, especially on the 4th and 1 Wildcat, which you can see coming, considering Lamar Jackson was split out wide at receiver. Texans are just reeling, and this season's only going to get worse before it gets better for them.
I mean, Mark Ingram, just so everybody remembers, is the starting running back for the Baltimore Ravens.
That he is.
Mark Ingram is the starting running back for the Baltimore Ravens, in case everyone seems to have forgotten. But, yeah, it's, I mean, Mark Ingram. I love it when that. Fun fact: I used to be a black belt. Thank you. I didn't ask, but great.
He may be the starting running back. He's only third on his team in rushing, though.
That's a problem. That's definitely a problem.
Well, when your quarterback has 99 yards and your backup has 90, and you only have 84.
Trust me, that's a problem for my fantasy team too, because I believed in Mark Ingram. But not only that, I was like, well, listen, Mark Ingram shared a backfield before and he got his yards. Thank goodness for that long 4th and 1 touchdown. Saved my fantasy day to a degree. What's your favorite team there, James?
It's this team in green that's very inept on offense, and they're struggling. It's not the Jets, by the way. It's the Eagles.
Oh, okay. That's good. By the way, the Jets unis are straight fire. The Philadelphia Eagles uniforms need to be a little bit better. Come on now.
Whoa.
Come on now. Expect more.
We're trying to go back to the Kelly Green, but the league won't let us.
So your head coach, Doug Pederson, was grilled during his press conference, and I decided to leave in the reporter's question here for this one because this is classic. This is classic Philly media here. Here we go.
Hey, Doug, you guys have sort of fallen into a bit of a hole the last 3 seasons now. I'm just curious, as the head coach, like mentally, is it a little bit exhausting for you to have to go through this again and deal with all of our questions as well?
Dealing with your questions are exhausting. That's what's exhausting. Handling the wins and losses. That's a little bit easier than handling your questions.
That's a great way to handle the Philadelphia media. Just laugh at them.
Pretty much.
What kind of question was that? That's terrible.
Probably a terrible question, but I understand the sentiment. At this point, aside from the Super Bowl season, we've been 1-1 or 0-2 every year under Doug Pederson through the first 2 weeks. This is not good, and it's ugly. Like, even the games that we've won within the first 2 weeks, if we've started 1-1, were some of the most ugliest wins. But somewhere along the way, things look promising. Right now, nothing looks promising in any phase of the game for the Philadelphia Eagles. Offense looks shoddy because he's trying to get the ball in the hands of these under 6 foot speedy wide receivers, which means Carson Wentz is throwing the ball 40 times a game, which he's done in both games. That means little running for the running backs, which I don't understand. The strength of this team is supposedly still the offensive line, but that strength means that you're running the football, and they got away from that in both games. They got away from it when they were up 17-0 against Washington. They got away from it when they were down 5, driving to try to go ahead before Carson went through that hurtful interception. And that was despite the fact that Miles Sanders fumbled on his first carry. The point that what they were trying to get back into the game, they got away from their identity. And this team's identity is not Carson Wentz. You're not going to convince me that quarterback play is this team's identity. It is the running game. It needs to be put on Boston Scott, Miles Sanders, and the rest of that backfield, and just turn around, give them the ball, let these linemen pull and blow up anybody in front of them, and just bully ball them down the field. Take your chances, play action to the tight ends, Ertz and Goddard, hit Jackson, Rager, and the rest of the receiving core when they're wide open, because that's the only way Wentz can hit them, and play it that way. On the defensive side, this team is lost. After the front four, pass rush, run game, whatever you want to, whatever they're trying to do up front, secondary and linebacking core is just a shambles. And this defense needs a complete overhaul. The scheme does not fit the talent we currently have, and Schwartz needs to make some adjustments.
Is the offensive line really your strength? I mean, you lost your starting guard before the season even began. You just lost another guard. I just read that injury at the beginning of the show. I think the problem is your offensive line is not your strength, and you think it is, and it's not. And you can't get if you don't have an offensive line to protect your quarterback to get the ball to those speedy wide receivers. I mean, we just saw the Chiefs. We just saw the Chiefs have that same problem against the Chargers. Yeah, the Chiefs got a great, fast, super fast offense, but if that pass rush gets to the quarterback before he can even get it deep to his wide receivers, it ain't going to work.
Yeah, but you know what the Chiefs did, and this is to Andy's credit that he's learning in his 26th year of coaching. He's running the football more, and Doug Pederson isn't. And granted, Sunday Miles Sanders had 20 carries and 95 yards, but there should have been more carries in that backfield. There are opportunities to where you have the opposing defense reeling, and because of all these injuries, you should be running the ball more than throwing. I get it. You want to plug and play, and the offensive line is going to be fine. No, it's not, especially when you have a quarterback like Wentz, who doesn't move anymore because of his ACL injury that he sustained during the Super Bowl run. And he wants to make every single play a home run. So he'll stand there. He'll stare down the wide receiver until they come open. He won't go through his progressions properly. When the pocket collapses, instead of just bailing out of the pocket and just throwing the ball away, he takes a sack. And he's constantly setting this offense back. So, you can put some of it on the injuries in the offensive line, but between play calling and the play of the quarterback, that's where the bulk of that lies. If there's injuries up front, adjust to compensate for that.
All right, I have one more piece of sound for you, James.
All right.
Most of the stadiums in the NFL don't have fans in them. There were a few. We saw a few of them that had some fans there watching the game, but they don't have fans in Tampa, unless, of course, you're the GOAT, and then apparently you can get whomever you want to come visit you at the stadium. Let's find out what happened in Tampa Bay this week.
I don't know if you saw this or not in the stands, but Brett Favre was here, and he has on a Tom Brady Buccaneer Bruce shirt. What has it meant to have his support?
Well, I love Brett. I've known him for a long time, and gotten closer and closer with him over the years. And I'm a huge fan of who he is and the player he was, but the father he is, the husband he is, and he's just a wonderful man.
Wait a second. Was Tom talking about Brett? Was he talking about me? Let's go back and listen to that. What do you think?
Sure
what do you think about?
What
do you think about PodVader there, Tom Brady?
I'm a huge fan of who he is and the player he was, but the father he is, the husband he is, and he's just a wonderful man.
Stop, Tom. Seriously, that's too much.
Yeah, does Queen Podmate feel the same way right now?
I don't think she knows about this podcast right now, so let's try and keep that on the D-low. She doesn't need to know what's happening on Tuesday mornings. Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay.
Dude, and the worst thing is, not only that, I was like, first of all, what's Brett Favre doing at a Tampa Bay Buccaneers game? It makes absolutely no sense. He has no ties to the Tampa Bay organization whatsoever. And then there's an NFL show that's on one of the pay movie channels. Why it's on the pay movie channels, I'll never know. But they put out a clip to promote the show this week, and it was Favre and his grandson in the luxury box watching the game, and the kid goes, "How much do you think Tom Brady's worth?" And Brett's like, "I don't know." And the kid's like, "Well, I know you're worth like $33,000, which is a lot."
Wow.
And Favre is just shaking his head. Favre even looks at the camera. He does a Zach Morris and looks at the camera and just shakes his head. Oh, it's fantastic.
See, this is why you can't take kids anywhere.
No, it's why you need to take kids everywhere. They've got the best sound bites of all time.
Oh,
just,
gosh.
The one place where you can't take the kids apparently is the Atlanta Falcons locker room, because they have grown men.
Well,
they have grown men in the locker room. Right.
We've already touched that, or not touched that.
No little boys in the Atlanta Falcons locker room. Just grown men. All right. Going to the YMCA. Okay. you want to hear more of our shenanigans, you can listen to our podcasts later this week. We've got a Superfan battle coming to you, perhaps, probably, hopefully, tomorrow to preview the Thursday Night Football game. We'll have the full Week 3 preview coming to you on Thursday. James will be here. I think Doc is going to come back again. I think Doc likes hanging out with us, James.
That's awesome. I need more recipes to try out.
I tried the lemon maple pork tenderloin this past week.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
And the recipe is fantastic. I think I put a little too much time in my recipe. That was the only. If I could have taken the time out and it was so good. It was really delicious. But what ended up happening is I doubled the recipe, and I think I didn't need to double the time. So when I doubled up the recipe.
No. You gotta be.
So anyway,
time is very tricky.
By the way, all of those recipes from Doc are available on our Facebook page, facebook.com/NFU podcast. And maybe if I find some time when Queen Padme doesn't know, I'll maybe go and work on our website too. Put the recipes over there. Maybe the power rankings. We'll have the power rankings. They'll make the picks. This week, the power rankings got only 2 games wrong, James. I don't know if that's ever happened before with the power rankings. It was a good week for the power rankings.
Yeah, it was a good week for me too. I also only got 2 games wrong.
So we'll have all the picks coming to you, and then perhaps there'll be more Superfan battles for the rest of Week 3 a little bit later on this week, and we'll be back again next Tuesday with not a Week 3 recap, because this was not a recap show. I just want everyone to make sure that they understand this is not a recap show. We're not here to recap, James.
Unless something very big happens.
I don't know. If one of us gets injured, the show's not going to happen, and we got to protect this house. That's all I know. All right,
conditioning is important.
For James, I'm PodVader. Here's Kofi Annan. There you have it.
Dear friends and colleagues, saying goodbye is never easy. I believe we can all feel proud of what we have done together, and through it all, you have maintained your professionalism and commitment and remained true to the spirit of the Charter. That principle.
We go out, we hit people in the mouth.